Okay, one of the things we can do when we have a tube that's a little bit loose in the socket, a preamp tube, and do this at your own risk. I just take my fingernail and I pull each pin ever so slightly out. I don't want to move them a lot. Once you see it move at all, stop. Now, this doesn't always work, but sometimes that increased outward pressure helps the tube vibrate less or have a better contact. And that is much, much tighter than it ever was before. Still a little bit loose because the pins themselves are loose in the base, the pins of the receptacle of the socket. But that is a lot less wiggle than we had before. I'm going to do the same thing to this other one. These are some tongue saw reissues, which in certain circuits are fantastic. I've had problems recently with them having leakage on AB763 and similar two-channel Fenders with a shared cathode. And they're exceptionally poor choices for a cathode follower like V2 of a Marshall or the top boost tubes of a AC30. Both of these are much more solid. The output tubes are more solid, not as solid as I would like them to be. And I'll talk to the owner. I think that if we keep the vintage sockets and vintage wiring, it'd be a good thing for me when I replace the grommets on these three tubes to install bear traps if the solder connection allows. That bear trap would give a bit more retention to the tubes. And this is after I tighten these sockets up in the pins and the receptacle pins. They're just not great, and they've been under stress for 60 years. I might be able to solder to the base of an octal socket. I've not tried that because it's relatively rare that you get one of these Fenders with octal sockets grommeted as well. Anyway, let's see what this sounds like. All right, the first thing I can hear is that it is louder than it was before in the room. Has more gain. And by gain, in this case, I mean the boring definition that most techs use, as in there is more level. The signal comes in at X level, it leaves at Y level. The difference between them, how much louder Y is gain. And that's not the same thing as overdrive or distortion, what most guitarists use for the term gain. So in general, I try to use level rather than gain when I mean level, but sometimes I forget because I'm thinking in terms of the circuit. So bear with us. There's a bit of a hum, and that hum was there before with the old filter caps as well. It's not a problem with the new filter caps. It is the fact that this amp does not have a very good ground, with one side just going to, one of the heaters just going to ground. Put some heater hum in there. It's just part of the tone, man, with the 59 Vibrolux. And again, if we change out the tube sockets, I can fix that when that's happening. Or if the owner wants, I can keep the old tube sockets and change the ground. You know, just sound versus perceived value of a vintage amp. So with the volume at 4, tone about 7.5, trim off. With a Les Paul, here's neck. Let's go a little bit higher on the tone until we get a balanced sound. They use an audio taper pot for the tone circuit in this amp. They really should have used linear taper, in my opinion. Would have given a much wider range without getting too bright or too dark. So let's go up here to about 9. That's much better. All right, bridge. Thank God for relative minors. So that's all pretty nice there at 4. If I turn the tone up, it will now get brighter because the grid of V2A is no longer doing nasty, nasty things. And it'll get darker if you want. I'm no Wes Montgomery. I used to know a couple of those licks, but it's been years, and now I'm all thumbs. Let's try some more of the rock and country stuff and blues. So let's go back up to about 9 on the tone. That's a pretty good middle ground. And let's go up to about 7 on the volume. Now, you're hearing a lot more low end through my 2x12 than this will have with its 1x10 combo, but I don't have a 1x10 Alnico speaker to play this through right now. That's a really nice sound, man. The sustain now is really good. I could personally wish that it went a little bit faster, but you know, there's a reason that after this era they started coming out with the harmonic trim and then the blackface trim, which are improvements. But you know, that don't suck. There's a very, very slight noise now when the trim LFO is on in the background compared to having that LFO off, but it's nowhere near as loud as it was before I did all the grounding changes. I think that was part of the faulty or semi-faulty grounds that we fixed. So, all right, what happens if we go up in volume? I know that's not how it goes. Hear that little bit of splatter? That's the phase inverter in these amps, which is called a cathodiene phase inverter. And you'll have seen me and heard me talk about that in other videos. It is a weakness of the amps from this era. The Deluxe shares it. It has certain characteristics that some people love, some people hate. It gets a little bit raggedy when pushed. That's something that in a reproduction amp, I often improve. I don't make changes to the 59 unless the owner is very specific. In this case, since a lot has been changed already, I would recommend it. And that sound that we're hearing is due to grid clamping, and it's called nipple distortion. And I can not completely remove it, but I can dial it way the hell back in these things fairly simply without making radical changes, but they are changes. So I'll talk to the owner about that, but he may love this exactly as it is. You know, Neil Young does. When you're that high up on the volume, you may want to back the tone down a little bit, which also helps with that. You hear it on that C. If this were a Marshall or something with a long-tailed pair, I'd be very concerned about that. That's actually totally normal on this amp with it cathodiene. This thing is so much louder than how it was when it came into me. If you go back and look at the first video of this, I'll try to remember to put a link up top now. I mean, this is just truly night and day. And if you never play with that much gain, cool. It's there if you want, but it means that the cleans are louder now too. And again, the really bright stuff is in the highest ranges of this pot due to the audio taper that they used. And that only works when the volume is below about, let's say 8 or 9. Real quick, let me make sure all 3 input jacks are working. I haven't tested the one in number 2. And 3. Yeah, they work. They're there. But if this were my amp, they'd gather dust.